In today's video, I'm sharing 12 ways to develop self-awareness. Now, before I deep dive into this topic, let's take a brief moment to talk about what is self-awareness and why it is important. Now, there are many other names for self-awareness like self-conscious, self-recognition, self-analysis, self-reflection, examination, observation, and even soul-searching. At its heart, self-awareness is a self-inquiry process. And what is it that you are inquiring? You are inquiring, what are your priorities in life? Are there any areas in your life where you have pain? Are there any destructive patterns that you need to change? Because we can only change and heal that which we are present to. And this is what self-inquiry process facilitates. So when you develop self-awareness, in essence, you are raising your consciousness. You are learning to go inward and examine your thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, actions, emotions, and see if they align with your values or not. And if they don't, then you can make course corrections. The blessing of self-inquiry is that it leads to deep self-knowledge. And that in turn enables you to go beyond your fears, to develop healthy coping mechanisms, to become responsible for where you are putting out energy, and of course develop emotional intelligence. Now, I like to think of self-awareness as an engine or a turbine that turns on our consciousness development. And self-awareness is absolutely necessary because without it, there is no growth, there is no evolution. And we need self-awareness because without it, we get stuck in our pain, in our fears, we stay emotionally immature, we interact with life from a very superficial level, and over time it leads to deterioration, it causes mental and emotional sickness. And while we at it, it's worthwhile to remember that your soul has a mandate, it has an agenda, and that is to evolve your consciousness. And when we don't do that, we end up creating a lot of unnecessary drama in our lives. And both you and I know that's not what we want, not at a conscious level, right? So now that we understand what is self-awareness, why it is non-negotiable, let's talk about practical ways to developing it. So my number one suggestion is acceptance. Acceptance is, at its core, that you are not at war with yourself or any situation in your life. It doesn't mean you have to love these situations or like them. It means you are no longer fighting them. As in, at some level, you are accepting of them. And the reason I started our discussion with acceptance is because without it, we can develop a healthy self-esteem. We don't surrender. We forget to keep our faith and our trust in a higher power. And if this is something you want to cultivate, reflect upon situations in your life that don't feel peaceful. It could be relationship with a family member or spouse, or where you live, or where you work. It could be anything that you're internally fighting. And really asking yourself, what will it take for me to accept this situation, and then fill in the blanks. Reflect on all the reasons that come up in your mind. And commit to doing this exercise for 30 days because at the end, you will uncover what you need to do, where you need to make a change. My next suggestion for developing self-awareness is paying attention to your default thinking patterns and really reflecting on what archetypes are you unconsciously playing out in your life. And the most common archetypes that most of us can relate to is victim, victimizer, predator, prey, master, slave, famous, insignificant, greater than, less than, beautiful, ugly. So some of these archetypes, it's easy to relate. For example, a lot of women, they feel less than or even ugly when comparing themselves to supermodels in magazines, on social media, and thus playing out these archetypes. And if this is something you want to develop your awareness in, as in what are those archetypes that I'm tapping into, then really pay attention to your emotional triggers, your knee-jerk reactions, and any trauma you might have experienced. My next suggestion for developing self-awareness is to practice becoming a neutral observer And what that means is that during times of conflict, see if you can detach from what's happening and observe it with compassion. Because when you can be a witness to any drama, any pain, struggle, challenges, something magical happens. You stop reacting and you start responding from a grounded place. And this skill of being a compassionate witness to your life, your circumstances, can create quantum shifts and open possibilities in every single area of your life, including relationships. Now, another powerful tool to know yourself is to confront your beliefs. Especially during times of emotional conflict. See if you can detach and look objectively at your situation and ask yourself, okay, what's the number one belief that's causing me pain? Because a lot of time we take on beliefs from our parents, from our friends, family, culture, tradition, and we take on these beliefs without questioning them. And then we get locked into a certain way of thinking. So really asking yourself, okay, what's the number one belief that's causing me distress? From whom did I pick up this belief? And if I let it go, will it empower me? And if the answer is yes, ask yourself, okay, which belief can I choose in its place? Now, an equally potent tool for developing self-awareness is gratitude. And as you know, gratitude raises your vibration. It helps you to discipline your mind. When you are in a state of gratitude, you can be grumpy or complaining about life. And so in a way, gratitude supports your mental and emotional well-being. It makes you feel happy, keeps your mind uplifted, magnetizes things to yourself, and over time, it helps you build spiritual strength. Now, one skill that can seriously accelerate your self-awareness is cultivating a quiet mind. And one of the most potent tools to do so is meditation. And if for any reason meditation is not your thing, try simply sitting in silence or journaling or gardening. For some people, running can be meditative. And the reason you want to develop this skill is without a quiet mind, it is so easy to get stuck in our head. We end up wasting a lot of energy. But most importantly, we can't access our intuition if we have a lot of mental chatter. We can't access our higher sensory perceptions. And so really take time to develop this skill. Another way to hone self-awareness is through forgiveness. And what I can share from personal experience is that when we don't forgive or we refuse to forgive, at some level we are still seeing ourselves as a victim. And worse, it keeps us entangled with that situation or that person, and it doesn't allow us to put a bookend to those painful chapters in our life. And what has helped me shift my perspective is asking myself, okay, what's the number one? What's the underlying lesson I needed to learn from this experience? Because when we can learn our lessons, we don't attract those people, those situations in our life anymore. But sometimes, forgiveness does take its own sweet time. And so please give yourself a lot of grace and compassion. My next suggestion for developing self-awareness is to learn to hold your attention for an extended period of time. Because this is how you cultivate single-mindedness. And one of the quickest ways to hone the skill, in my experience, is through candle meditation. Because when you gaze into the flame of a candle, your mental chatter starts to fall away, making it so much easier to stay present. Now, an integral part of developing self-awareness is to commit to your emotions, is to commit to developing emotional balance, which is basically learning how to manage a wide spectrum of emotions. Because your emotions dictate every single aspect of your life, from how you feel, your productivity, how you show up in the world, even the quality of your relationships. And if you are not in sync with your emotions, you can't raise your consciousness. Now, another potent tool to increase self-awareness is to pay attention to areas in your life where you might be unconsciously giving away your power. For example, situations when you blame other people for your circumstances, or when your choices and actions are not aligned. you have to remember that personal power and autonomy go hand in hand. So really look at areas in your life where you are unconsciously seeking permission or validation, approval, or acceptance from other people. My next suggestion for cultivating self-awareness is to practice neutrality, especially when interacting with other people. And, in situations that are emotionally triggering, emotionally challenging. See if you can dare yourself to tap into neutrality. That is, speaking from a place of calmness, of centeredness, instead of anger or hostility. Because when you can hold that neutrality, regardless of the situation, that's a sign that you have cultivated a high degree of self-awareness. And finally, as your self-awareness increases, your sphere of influence increases. As in, when you start speaking your truth, you empower other people to do the same. When you own your personal power, again, you inspire others. And this is part of raising your consciousness, raising your vibration, because now you are starting to hold a new frequency that other people can tap into. Now, of all these 12 practices, I would love to hear which one resonated most with you, which one you are going to give a shot. Let me know in the comments below. I hope these suggestions for developing self-awareness are supportive in your healing journey. Now, in the description below, I've added links to articles from where I source this content, so feel free to check them out. As always, please only take what resonates, discard all the rest. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next video.